Hello, everyone. This is part 3 of our project. My name is Ellie Cash, and so I'm just going to walk you through the remaining part of our project. So essentially, one of the things we wanted to focus on was the critical elements for gifted and talented students. And we sort of, when we were researching this, felt like the Torrance incubation model for teaching really is a great tool for gifted and talented students because it identifies not only a content goal for the lesson plan, but also a creativity goal, which goes back to the 3 steps of the Torrance incubation model, which is heightened learning, deepened expectations, and extended learning. And like Jesse mentioned earlier, this is just a really great tool to use because educators are essentially still using the same lesson plan. They're just able to focus more on adding a creative twist, and the lesson plans we thought were really more targeted for the students when you're thinking about teaching for content and for creativity instead of something that they might not be super engaged with. The Torrance incubation model really allows for students to be fully engaged, and gifted and talented students sort of get the focus and the mental stimulation that they need with this. And I also think it was important that the incubation model doesn't require students to be graded or receive graded feedback. And essentially the student would be observed on observation, and they're evaluated based on observation and the ability to ascertain the creativity goal that the teacher has put in place. And the really awesome thing with this program is that it can be really flexible across the platform. So like if a student is not doing so well with one type of lesson plan, that's okay, because the incubation model allows to sort of regroup and say, okay, and it's super easy to work with and replace, a concept or a plan. So it just overall allows for students to have a deep dive into a topic and understand the deeper meanings. So moving on to the pros and cons of the Torrance incubation model for teaching. Overall, the pros far outweigh the cons. As you can see here, just to highlight a few, it's really relatively easy to implement the lesson plan. And one of the things that I think is really great about it is that it engages students with the inclusion of modern technological advancement in lesson plans. So students are able to work with interfaces that are more familiar to them, and can really see, here is where this real world application with me, researching something on my laptop, this will also be useful for me out of the classroom as well. And again, that goes down to a few more points, presents real world problem solving applications, and also just the most important thing, heightening the experience of learning in the classroom and giving students multiple ways to figure out a problem instead of maybe a student sitting in the classroom not feeling as engaged, not getting that mental stimulation that they need. So those are the really great pros. But on the flip side, the cons, we were thinking maybe the incubation model of teaching could be great for one specific type of learner. Like maybe not all students are necessarily learning that way and it's not the best for them. But again, that just goes back to the flexibility of the incubation model, and how you really can just with more ease, I feel like, implement different ideas to readjust and present a different way of learning for students. Another thing is that it could be a potentially outdated model. It was created in 1979, but again, people are modifying this model, again, with the pros for the engagement of modern technology in their lesson plans, which is really useful. And it teaches kids that maybe there doesn't have to be a boundary or a line drawn between technology and school. You can intermingle them and intertwine them and create a great product. And then one of the other things is that the implementing this maybe puts a little bit of pressure on educators in terms of identifying how long a classroom should spend on each step of the model. Like we've talked about in this class, not all students learn at the same pace. And so it really would be up to the educator to determine, how well is this student learning? How long should we be spending on each topic? How deep of a dive do we need to go into? One of the examples of the models that I thought was really awesome was this school teacher the lesson plan was to teach her students how to write letters. And so she was focusing on thank you notes. She showed the students a short video of the Apollo 11 moon landing, which was the heightened anticipation part of the Torrance model. And a few of the students were like, what does the Apollo 11 moon landing have to do with letter writing? And she was like, aha, well, just you wait and see, because it turns out Neil Armstrong wrote a thank you letter to his team at NASA. And then she was like, okay, to her students, she said, why write a thank you note and what reasons would you do that? And so that was the deepen expectation portion, step 2. And then for step 3, she had them engage in an activity where they wrote thank you notes to someone in their community. And you can click on that link to view that as well. And finally, just to close, we wanted to talk about why creativity is even necessary in the classroom. This exercise at right, you can click on the video, is about a connecting the dots exercise. So students were given an opportunity to, the teacher gave them instructions for how to connect the dots, and they were very rigid. So all of their results were the same on how they decided to do it. And the next time the moderators were like, okay, do it in a more creative way, do it in the way you want to. And so the results were awesome, so different from each other in just really creative ways. And the point of the video, and one of the things they said in it, was if students are asked simple questions, they will provide simple answers. And so I think really the Torrance incubation model of teaching encourages students to go beyond the simple questions and go beyond the simple answers. It encourages them to do a deep dive beyond initial presumptions and explore alternative ways to come up with a creative solution. So overall, when students are asked challenging questions, they're required to think outside the box, and the Torrance incubation model does just that.